making that mash. He watches and he looks. Oh, Gator, he knows that swamp like a book. Something out there moving, Gator. What do you see? Ain't nothing but the snakes and the gators and me.
The last time the Florida Gators won a national championship, it was 10 seasons ago. And back then, Tim Tebow was the quarterback, Urban Meyer was the head coach, and the outlook for Florida football was far different than what it is today. In recent seasons, Florida, well, they've not been that Florida team that we saw about a decade ago. In fact, last season, they weren't even damn good. Only 4 wins, and it was the end for Jim McElwain. Yeah, so much for his idea of offense. McElwain's now a part of the Michigan coaching staff with Jim Harbaugh. So you bring in a guy that was the offensive coordinator the last time the Gators won a national championship in 2008, and 2 years before, 2006, in Dan Mullen, a guy who brought a lot of success to Starkville, Mississippi, and that Mississippi State football team. And one of the qualities you get with Coach Mullen, he has shown in the past that he can develop quarterbacks. We know this because he was the coordinator for the Gators in the 2000s when he helped develop Chris Leak and Tim Tebow to national championship winning quarterbacks in 2006 and 2008, respectively. I'm not saying that he could do the same thing with Felipe Franks, but he should help Franks' game out, and Franks' numbers have to get better. 55% completion percentage, only 9 touchdowns thrown, 8 interceptions, took 29 sacks. Wasn't all Felipe Franks' fault that he wasn't just a terrific quarterback last season. Offensive line didn't give him a whole lot of time to throw usually. So if the offensive line can get better, and we'll talk about them in a second, then I foresee that Felipe Franks, under the tutelage of Dan Mullen, should get better too. The running game I know will be better because you get Jordan Scarlett back. They didn't have him last year because of the credit card scandal. Scarlett was suspended all of 2017, but the year before gained almost 900 yards. And you get LaMichael Pirine, that's Samaje Perine's cousin, back. 8 touchdowns for him. Malik Davis, when healthy, was effective in 2017, but did suffer a mid-season knee injury. The wide receivers, Tyree Cleveland, 18.6 yards per catch. You get him back. And Kadarius Terry, who played some as a freshman, also returns. And in addition for this Florida offense, and this should really help out big time, we're talking about the play of Van Jefferson, who had over 90 catches in his 2 seasons at Ole Miss. Now you get him as a transfer. But the offensive line had big-time complications. It just was not a collective unit. They gave up, like I said, a ton of sacks. They actually gave up 37 sacks total, one of the highest in college football, and not always opening up those running lanes. But it was a young offensive line. You get everybody back. And one guy that I thought did have a good year and held his own was Martez Ivey, the second-team All-SEC tackle from last season. You could put him at right tackle or left tackle. He's pretty diverse. The Gators have to improve upon red zone opportunities. They only got into the opponent's 20-yard line 31 times. Only 31 times. But when they got inside the opponent's 20, they did good things. They scored 97% of the time, which was 3rd best in college football. So when they were able to move the football effectively, which wasn't too often, they were able to get points. And points, well, we'll see if they can improve upon that 22-point per game average, which was 108th in college football. But got to give yourself more chances, though. Defensively, Florida, over the past 10 years, they have been used to having top 15 defenses until last season. That streak ended when they finished 31st, which is still good, but Florida did have a drop-off. They just weren't as aggressive on the defensive side, and they gave up 27 points per game, which ranked them in the lower half of college football. So Florida took a backseat in a bit as far as defense, so now they have a new defensive coordinator. Todd Grantham will bring a 3-4 defensive alignment, but they will run some 3-3-5 as well. Florida, with the hiring of Grantham, expect them to be more aggressive and expect Kerry Clark to have a nice season. He returns as nose tackle. And you got the big guy, defensive tackle, in Ladero Slayton, 6'4", 358 pounds, a load to move. At the rush position, valuable player entering his senior year, and C.C. Jefferson had 47 tackles and 4.5 sacks. So with this new alignment, he should be able to really throttle. Linebacker, you return your leading tackler, and David Reese now entering his senior year with 102 stops. Vashawn Joseph is also back. He had 55 tackles. But I think the strongest area for this Florida defense will be the secondary. They started very young last year and actually did pretty good considering how many freshmen that they had in the secondary. They finished 28th in the country in pass defense, giving up only 195 yards per game. This secondary has a shot at being one of the best this year in all college football because of the experience and the youth that experience gained in 2017. Both corners last year were freshmen, Marco Wilson as well as C.J. Henderson. And last season, Wilson had 10 pass breakups, and you had Henderson on the other side with his 4 interceptions. And by the way, Wilson also had 34 tackles. You return the safety, now entering his sophomore year, in Brad Stewart, and you have Jawan Taylor. As long as he can stay healthy, which was an issue last year, Florida will be even better in the secondary. And they're going to move Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from the safety position to the nickelback. Second leading returning tackler for the Gators. He had 58 stops last season. But the Gators do have to replace their place kicker, who made his last 18 kicks a year ago, and their punter, who led the nation in punting average. Highlighting the Gators' schedule, it has the makings of a 4-0 start, assuming that Florida can get past Tennessee in Knoxville on September 22nd. If that happens, then Florida would have already have matched their win total from last season. But September 29th will be a tough one, and Dan Mullen's return to Starkville to take on Mississippi State, a team that he had coached for 9 seasons. October the 6th won't be a picnic either against LSU, but at least you get them at the Swamp. If you notice the Gators' schedule, only 3 games outside of the state of Florida. That will help immensely. What will also help is getting 2 weeks to prepare for arch rival Georgia in Jacksonville, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. But the Bulldogs, I'm assuming, will be a big favorite to win that game. November has 3 home games, including South Carolina and former Gator head coach Will Muschamp. But you close out the season in Tallahassee against your arch rivals, Florida State. With Dan Mullen coming back to Florida, that should help the offense big time. Plus that schedule, I think, sets Florida up well to win at least 8 games. But it'll take them a year or 2 to get completely into SEC contention. Georgia is still by and far the team to beat in the East, but I got Florida picked second in this division. That's my look at the Gators. We'll see you next time.